Murang'a residents were left angry and dejected after President Uhuru Kenyatta skipped a funds drive at the ACK Church in Kennel. The president instead sent 3 cabinet secretaries to represent him. Area leader tried to save face, assuring residents who are eager to see him that he will visit soon. Let's just hear from our political reporter, Kenneth Murang'a, who has more details on this snub that perhaps intensifies the disquiet in the region on the day that Deputy President William Ruto also cancelled a parallel tour of the area.
All was set and the stage had been perfectly set as Murang'a rolled out the red carpet in anticipation of the day's important guest, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Security was tight at the ACK Kennel Church. The presence of the president's advance team raised hope that he was on the way. But soon, the heavy security detail was scaled down, his team rolled back, and so was the red carpet, a clear sign he would not show. Instead, 3 cabinet secretaries, Fred Matiang'i, James Macharia and Joe Mosheru, came in his place. They were received by the county's political leaders and the clergy before a 10-minute closed-door meeting at what was meant to be the president's holding room. Here, NTV understands, leaders were whipped into a common talking point with no focus on politics or the president's snub. This even as Murang'a leaders squabbled over the event, with each claiming credit for putting it together.
We know he's our leader in this Mount Kenya region. He's our able president that we voted for, Kumera na Kumeria, and we are happy of the kind of work that he's doing.
Even if he is not here physically, he is here spiritually. I have no doubt about it. When I see Matiang'i, I see the president. I have no doubt about it.
The residents felt shortchanged by the president, but would only whisper it. The cabinet secretaries on their part tried to save face, telling the congregants that the president had a last-minute change of schedule as he had received a foreign delegation. They assured he would visit soon.
We're not here to talk about siasa padei. As we know, if you bring development to our people, the list of the things you follow in light praise.
Murang'a people support the president 100%. And by the way, I want to reiterate, some people have been talking of a political bedroom. This is Uhuru Kenyatta bedroom.
And our president loves us and loves Kenya so much that he actually accepted to have a handshake with Raila Amolo Odinga. That was a miracle. And the beauty of that miracle is that we've been able to focus on development.
Our president apologizes, but he has sent us with his offering, and we are going to work together.
Deputy President William Ruto, who had 2 functions, one in Kirinyaga and another in Murang'a, cancelled both to avoid undermining the president and his church function. Residents have been expressing in hushed tones of their disappointments of President Uhuru Kenyatta not showing up, and they do believe that his arrival here in Murang'a and by extension Mount Kenya region would have calmed some of the political temperatures that have been rising over time. Kennedy Murang'a, NTV in Murang'a County.
That's really just depicts what is really happening as far as the deputy and the president is concerned on a raft of issues where their unity is also in the spotlight. It showcases not only that particular event, but many where it seems that where the deputy president will be, then Uhuru will not really appear. But what really happened to this particular duo really getting famously? Remember this particular picture, right? The unity within that particular Jubilee party. They were always together. Of course, we saw them, with their arms or their shirts really rolled up their sleeves as well. Is there a wedge between a deputy president and, of course, his president?
They used to wear red ties.
Red ties.
Uniform.
Okay. Isaac Mwaura, were you in Murang'a yesterday?
Of course, I think you saw me there.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't see you.
He refused to invite me for lunch. I suffered. I was there. I was suffering.
But let's talk about what this particular event that, yes, the frosty relationship between now the president and the deputy, that is, of course, it's a foregone conclusion. Anyone or any Kenya can see truly they're not together.
I think yesterday was quite a time that many people, even me when I was leaving my house, I was leaving to go and be with the president because I was going to support my brother, Irungo Kangata, who really we come along with, because it is important. And the people of Central Kenya want to see their president. And it's something that I've told His Excellency the President in person, I think a week ago, that he goes to the ground. And I was happy. He went to Gatondo and people really were happy about it. They desire to see their father. And they are saying that the same way he came and asked for votes from them, they want just to see him. And I think he will, because there are many development projects that he is supposed to come and launch, including the expansion of Thika Superhighway, various markets, and all of that. So it's a matter of timing, I think. And also what I see is a situation where, you see, you cannot have a president in Murang'a and also a deputy president in Murang'a at the same time. And maybe also what the president would have avoided is a situation where he would have come to Murang'a and then the deputy president also goes there also at the same time. Because that has happened many times, where you cancel a function and then both of them show, at the same place. But generally, people love the president. I think it's important for us to say that. And they would want to see a situation where he is the one who comes to launch development, because it is him that they elected, It is him that they gave their mandate. He is a kingpin. And there is no other kingpin in Central Kenya right now apart from him. And he will, of course, make a determination, and the people will listen to him. Contrary to popular opinion, when the president speaks, people will listen because they trust him with the judgment about the country. But certainly, you can also not underestimate the support of William Ruto in Central Kenya. He is extremely popular amongst the people. People seem to have liked him because he's the one who is more regular. That absence also is a factor that you cannot actually ignore. So it remains to be seen, because things keep on shifting. But what I hear from the ground is that if the president actually lands there, it will change the tide. That's what I'm hearing a lot, going forward. But also, I think for us leaders in Central Kenya, much as we have political contestations, we in Central Kenya must not be seen to be the ones antagonizing the president and the deputy president. Because what am I trying to say is that there is no way you could expect that I have a Harambee and my next door neighbor has a Harambee and we have invited the two leaders of the Jubilee Party. There should be some form of consultation. There should be some form of tolerance. And I'm very happy for all the members of parliament who were there yesterday in Murang'a, and they were not, you couldn't say it's one side of Tangatanga or Kieleweke. But that's the kind of unity we want to see.
Just a moment. It appears also that this has turned out to be a cheering contest. That when we have the deputy president and the president also in the one fora, we have also people who, so to speak, have been bankrolled, so to speak, to come and cheer one or the other.
I think that can be said to be so because, in politics people mobilize. But at the same time...
But why would you mobilize? This is executive. Why will you mobilize, one opponent against the other?
The idea is to show that the deputy president is more popular. And I think he actually has substantive support.
So by any means, even if it's now doling out money
it is
for people to cheer?
Debal, I'm not defending those people who do so because I'm not one of them. What I'm trying to say is that it is not right, for example, to try to upstage the president by showing like he's less popular than his deputy. It doesn't play politics well, because by the end of the day, the president is the president. Right. And that's why I'm trying to say, Debal, let me just finish by this statement. That's why I'm trying to say that we who are members of parliament are the ones now who are also creating this wedge by, creating paradiaries, because if the president is coming, then it's expected that then he should be the only one presiding anything in that region.
Okay, let's hear from Richard Onyuka.
Sorry, I have to come in because I was with my brother.
Let's hear from Opogiso, then we'll come to you.
Okay.
It's been fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I know the people who are in Murang'a will tell us more. But seriously, actually, you see, there is no need to be told that the relationship between those two is gone cold. It's very clear. And Central Kenya plays a big role in this. Tell the people who have started the Tangatanga and Kieleweke, East Central Kenya. The people, even the people who started even this other women movement, which is called Inua Mama, and the other one is called Embrace, still largely began from that separation in Central Kenya. So Central Kenya is telling us, showing us that there is something that we need to begin to understand what's happening there. But I'm very glad to hear that from Senator Mwaura right now that the president is still that's his bedroom, and I really like the idea of bedroom. coming right after the Kibra elections. It so means that now that it's been declared bedroom, my friend, it has to be protected. And so that should be a good warning. You know, once you've been told this is a bedroom, now all these other hula baloos, all these other plans that you have, you now need to scale down and basically understand that that is actually bedroom. And I think also politicians of today, younger politicians who just came in, this idea of trying to show Central Kenya belongs to, or the deputy president is more popular as Central Kenya president. I mean, you can only make it look like. You know, you can only make it look like, and I think that's also true. It's like going to an area in Eldoret and saying we make it look like so and so is more popular. So let's not pretend. Politics is about that bedroom. It is now understood whose bedroom it is. However, for national figures like the president and the deputy president, they should completely begin to show us that this presidential system where we put them in, yeah, can actually work. But now they're giving us a very wrong impression, actually, very bad impression, that we should move away from it. Because if you allow this to continue, where the president is trying to be doing his work, and then the deputy president is full-time campaigning, the deputy president is campaigning full-time. And it must be avoided. The conflict must be avoided. So that if he wants to campaign, let him campaign far away from where the president is doing development. Let's not show that this thing is dividing people. And so I like what happened yesterday then in Murang'a, where none of them showed up. It's much better. The people were peaceful. You remember now they're saying there was peace. Otherwise, there were plans to upstage one to make it look like, you know, that's not very good.
Okay.
And I think this is actually somewhere where we should tell the leaders, please don't embarrass us by making it look like you're competing for something. We know who is who. We know the president can only be deputized, okay, when he's not there. I mean, you can't have it.
Right. Richard Onyonka.
I want to say that first, for me, the function was actually a success, from the point of view that the explanation which was given was kind of believable to the public that was there. But yes, there were issues which were outstanding, and a lot of the politicians who were there were saying, why didn't the president come? What is the problem? Three things happened which were very interesting. Number one, the president sent 3 of his best friends, and I actually happened to go there because C.S. Matiang'i asked us to escort him. The Kisii way is that you escort somebody when you are friends with him to a function like that. Number two, it was refreshing to hear Joe Musheru actually say, we are going to support the BBI and we are with it. It was very refreshing to listen to my brother and friend, Honorable Kenyatta, finally say he is no longer in any other group other than to be in the group of the presidency. The way I saw Mwaura smile, I think he's also headed there. He was in a good mood. He'll come back home. You remember we've been with him in ODM, and I was also in ODM once, and we are still brothers. And most likely, with there are new alliances which are going to emerge. And what was very interesting for that function is that all the members of parliament from Murang'a, the governor from Murang'a, the senator from Murang'a were there. And what it showed me is that there is this narrative which is being peddled that the president has lost his clout in Central, and that is because he has come up with the BBI, and you know this BBI, people of Central don't love it. There's this narrative which then goes on and they say, oh, you know, in fact, Central, we have never got any development. If you saw what the local member of parliament talked about yesterday, it was shocking. My brother senator, you were there. She said, there's a road being done in our area which is 462 kilometers. She said, we are doing this expansion of the bypass which is going to Isiolo. She was saying the roads which are going to be done in Central, the amount of water that people in Central are receiving. And then you have this narrative which is always being said, oh, the person who we need who's going to be working for us, who can in fact, who is development conscious and who's going to bring maendeleo is DP William Ruto. And you know the way it is, DP is now more popular than President Uhuru. When the rubber will touch the road, the people of Central are going to listen to President Uhuru. That is why Uhuru is saying, I want us to discuss development. Actually, yesterday, it is true. We were told, which politics are you going to talk here? People like me, I'm not in Kieleweke, I'm not in Tanga. So what was I going to say? We said, there's no need. If somebody has said we are into the BBI and
Yes.
we are on that narrative,
Thank you.
that is where we are headed.
Yeah.
And that is what I saw. I saw that, and I saw the charge very clear and very, very firm that they are actually working with President Uhuru.
Let's wind it up with James Sikal on that.
Yeah.
Prof, you want it? Right, thank you.
The issue here is, what we're discussing is whether the president and the deputy president are working together. That's number one. Now, number two, we're also raising an issue. Who is more popular in Central Province? I think that is the issue that seems to be raised. But let's start by the president didn't turn up. There could actually be a pretty good reason why he didn't turn up. We don't know. But going by what the people who are there are saying, I'll just say two things. Honorable Mwaura said that there should have been consultation before there were two parallel meetings in Murang'a. Now that is very telling. For people who at the beginning would appear in a function in the same attire, which means there was a lot of consultation, even up to dressing. Yeah. Now suddenly, two meetings are in a county, and they seem not to know. What is that telling? Then number two, Honorable Mwaura says, people will listen when the president speaks, but let us not underestimate the DP's popularity in Central. Are the two mutually exclusive? When the people are listening to the president, does it mean the DP is not popular in Central? Why should we see the two as mutually exclusive? Those are the perceptions we are creating. And remember, when a president is anywhere, whether it's in Central, whether it's in Kisii, he may deal with local issues in that area because the people of that area deserve development and all issues. But he remains a president, and his utterances and demeanor must depict and keep the whole country happy, knowing that, okay, there he has said that, and from the bigger things he said, when he comes to us, we will still feel part of it. And I know you're not going to BBI, but that is where we would go with the BBI. So it is actually the politicians, by their utterances, behavior, and conduct, that is creating this impression. The reality must be somewhere, but politics is about perception. And if the politicians continue, particularly in Central, to create that perception, they are doing it at a detriment to the presidency and actually to the well-being of the country.
All right.
And this is,
Prof.
This is my point, you see. If you had a parliamentary system, you'd avoid all those things. Because the parliamentary system, you form very honest coalitions. You know that you are a coalition, but when elections come, each party will go its way. We will not have this problem. Yeah, it's very honest. We will not have this problem of having a president and the deputy president because they are in different parties having a conflict. Because you know, yes, we are in a coalition, okay? We would say party for the people, party for democratic change. We haven't got enough votes to form a government individually, so we come together. But you don't dissolve your parties. You are there together because you want to govern under certain principles you agreed on for 5 years, and then when elections come, you go your way, or you still continue. Now, what is going to happen in Britain, for example, this coming election on December 12th, is that most likely you're going to have a hung parliament, the way I see it. And the Conservatives and the Labour, or Labour and Liberals will have to discuss who the Queen is going to call to as Prime Minister. You see, and it's much more democratic, it's much more open. And you know that you're there, not because this is my time, next time. No. Everybody has a time, because when elections come, people choose between the parties, okay? and the leadership of those parties, which get the majority of the vote, form government. But in this case, like this one, you know, Jubilee was formed between URP and what? And Jubilee, isn't it? And then TNA too. And then they tried to collapse to make one party. When you still knew that really URP is not dead, TNA is not dead, okay? And when it comes to the next election, maybe TNA would still want to produce a candidate, and there would be conflict. And then you say, what? The same thing in NASA. You see, so the presidential system that we have will not cure the mischief that is BBI is trying to cure. BBI, one of the things that BBI is trying to cure is to have peaceful elections that doesn't produce conflict and violence of the election. But the way we are going, if we are going to elect a president in 2022, we'll fight again like 2017, 2013. So it's only insects which they behave in that way. Repeat the same thing and have the same consequences and don't change.
Different results.
Yeah, human beings are different. Human beings are inventive. Yeah, when you sit having down, well, you can invent. You find that this drug doesn't cure malaria. You do research, you find a better drug to cure malaria. Now, we have seen that the presidential system doesn't bring democratic elections. Let us do something else. So let us wait for the BBI to come out with a report for us to discuss it. Than dwell too much on what happened between the deputy president and the president in Murang'a. It is bound to happen somewhere else, if indeed the two believe that what is going to be done in 2022 is to elect president. One of the reasons why Raila is not talking about the presidency, because he's aware of it. He has less elections 3 times. So what's the point of going to elections when even if you get the votes, the counting
will not be declared winner?
And even if the counting is done, somebody will still declare.
The other small
that
point,
will work.
Prof, the other, Dibal, there's a small point I wanted to make. There is this notion which exists over the agreement which was signed, the post-election agreement which was signed between the president and deputy president, where they have been actually elected as the presidency. In other words, even if the deputy president misbehaves as much as he would, there's nothing the president can do. How can you have a country run like that? Because there must be order.
Thank you. All right, but let's explore also the role of Parliament in its current state of play as it is right now in the interest of the wananchi. And the question that I wanted to just to put on the table is, has Parliament really abrogated its role as far as, you know, safeguarding the interest of the citizens in this country? Two particular cases that we are waiting to see maybe the faces of parliamentarians really saving Kenyans is with the debt ceiling and the interest cap, which we saw most of you were no-show in the House, and there are allegations also of people being called by the party leaders, you know, to actually slant that particular vote on one side.
Yes, I think
so the question is, did any of the senators receive these particular phone calls?
Yeah, let me start.
Were there phone calls in the first place? Maybe that's the better question I should ask.
Yes, phone calls are always there because, you know,
phone calls are always there.
Yeah, it depends on who is calling, but phone calls are always there. But, you know, as long as you have appointed leadership in the House, and then you have majority party being also the sponsor to the executive, you can never have an independent parliament. That's a sad reality. Because by the end of the day, you are reminded, you are majority leader, courtesy of not a vote, but because you are appointed. Yes. You, Mwaura, you are nominated, and you are the vice chairman, finance and budget. You, Duale, you cannot. Because, why am I saying this? I kept on opposing the issue of borrowing under Henry Rotich and Kamau Thuge. At some point I was told, you, Mwaura, you can work eloquence, but there's nothing you're going to change. It's on record. I wish people can see those answered reports. Now, we are in a situation where the country is bankrupt. There is no money, or rather is broke. Let me not say bankrupt, broke. So do you actually throw the baby with the bathwater? So you are now having a situation where you're asking yourself, how did we get there? And very angry about it. And many members of parliament were very angry about that. But then you cannot say because you can't eat, you will not go and borrow some money to eat that evening, or at least to reschedule your dates or something like that. That is where we found ourselves into. And of course, then obviously, the country, I mean, because if we had not done this, we would have rewritten our budget and what have you. But certainly, Debal, I can tell you independently and without fear of blinking that if parliament is the way it is, with a super majority, with now handshake, with this handshake, there is a narrative or a single story. Because NASA people are being called by ODM leadership and whatever, as we are being called by Jubilee leadership, how could we possibly, have gone against the party? And that is now what I said even on my social media. Insofar as we have politics of patronage, the will of the people may never prevail. And we also need a strong opposition. In fact, one of the things that BBI should propose is an official leader of the opposition, properly clothed in parliament, not appointees as minority leader who receive phone calls and change their way. If you saw the way people were talking on the floor of the House that day, you would have wondered whether they are pseudo-reformers. Because Orengo was the one who was mobilizing for, for the passage of this vote. And he was as eloquent as he is. But he had fulfilled his role because, handshake had determined. Certainly, Kenyans can suffer greatly when we all seem to agree. I think there is room for divergence of opinion. And also, it is important for political parties to also have elections, which determine the House leadership. But as long as you know that, Mwaura, you never actually got it rightly, it's because your name was proposed and your numbers passed, when you are called, you'll be reminded, you remember we did this to you. What will you do? You can't be independent at that point in time.
Well, I think, let's take the two cases. We have the case of the interest rate caps, capping in the House. And I think that the members of Parliament, the National Assembly can probably explain that better. But if the President has returned his opinion in a memorandum back to the House, it requires action. It means he doesn't like the way the thing was passed. And so the House now is incumbent upon the party leadership to find a way and take a position on that. And I think we'll be told. So the best way was to create a situation where there was no quorum and the rules that this thing would pass automatically, it become law. Now I can only speak on the other one, which affects the Senate, and that's the one on raising the ceiling from what we used to represent our debt in terms of percentage.
Before you actually head there, you as the chair of. I think you're in the delegated committee as well.
Yeah. The role that I had at that point. This is regulations.
Yes.
And delegated legislation handles regulations. And I'm the chairman of the.
You're the chairman
of that committee.
Did you receive any phone call?
I didn't have to because I'm the one who moved the motion.
So before you move the motion,
you don't have
no phone calls at all?
No. I mean, if you are moving the motion, you don't have to have a phone call. I mean, I am the one putting the...
You already have the phone.
Yes, I already have the document because as chair of delegated legislation of any committee, if you're the one, if the motion is under you, you really don't have to. You have but one duty, which is to lay it on the table. And after laying it on the table, you move it, and then you allow.
But I'm given to understand these phone calls normally come even when the motion is being moved.
Isn't that so? If you look at the way we move the motions and on this particular matter, you don't need to convince anybody, because the decision had already been taken by a joint committee that the committee proposes that they support this motion. So it comes in already with a position, okay? And that's what the committee has. The committee in delegated legislation has to decide whether to support it or defeat it. You don't have amendments to it. And I think this is one of the areas where information was not given to the population about what we were doing at that particular time. Because there is misunderstanding and misrepresentation that the country is borrowing 9 trillion. That shocks everybody. And even those who voted against this thing would present themselves as though they were saviors. In fact, you remember they were calling themselves the heroes, the 7 heroes. And so the 30 would be what? Because I think the idea is a failure to understand what the country was going through and why the National Assembly had already passed this particular, approved this particular regulation. And it requires a lot of time for me to explain, to explain that this thing did not come as a motion. It came in as a regulation, and regulations are handled differently. You cannot amend a regulation. You simply approve or annul. Yeah. And I think that's where we need to understand that. So people do not understand. And then we need to understand the presentation, that nobody said the country was going to borrow 9 trillion shillings. It is just the ceiling, and this is very good for people to understand. The ceiling, which is allowable, had been surpassed by previous treasury leaders. And that's where the mistake was. and that you could not move an inch, including meeting your budget obligations, without.
Yes.
I'd like to continue where my friend Ogish has left. See, let us remember the genesis and the evolution of this debt thing. You remember, not too long ago, the president removed the Treasury CS and the PS, which means that they had not exercised this responsibility very well in financial management in the Treasury. Now, look, the country is building a lot of infrastructure. Okay, you just had some examples in Murang'a and so on. That's in one county, but of course the extent to other counties. Now, infrastructure is a very expensive thing. Okay, we have the SGR, we have the roads. Now we are talking about dualing the road from Nairobi to all these are necessary, and all these have been the plans since we were in government in NAC, in the National Rainbow Coalition. Okay, the point is that where do you get the money? Do you get money from your domestic revenue alone, or do you borrow? Now you have seen the pattern. You borrow at what price? Okay, and this is where the problem is, because the president's fight against corruption is much deeper than we think. If you analyze the debt content, how much is it really financing the infrastructure project? How much is padded with other things? Okay, but that is now a fait accompli. We are now between the devil and the deep blue sea. Okay, do we continue with infrastructure and borrow when we have a humongous debt already, which we need to service, which we should have avoided if we had borrowed kind of carefully without padding it with other things. So the president is fighting corruption to see whether something can be covered from what is already gone, and at the same time say we don't halt our infrastructure development, we must continue. But if we do, there's a high likelihood that we're going to overshoot our current debt ceiling at 6 trillion. So you can't create room and go to 9 trillion. Because I would say financial management, bad manners up to now, which has brought us where we are. Exactly. Okay, so sanitize the system, but don't halt the infrastructure development. If the infrastructure development means continuing to borrow, now borrow judiciously and carefully and make sure that what you borrow finances what you want to do, and you begin improving domestic production for getting more money in terms of export earnings, so that you could begin servicing your foreign loans from your export earnings. Now, it's really, to me, when I see that dilemma, and you have to do it in double quick time so that you save the country from getting on hyperinflation, it's daunting. So on one way, the Parliament should have discussed and exposed these problems better to the people before they pass the thing, rather than just passing it because it's a term. I mean, that is why Parliament is there.
It is so important. It is so important, but also Parliament, you failed Kenyans. Because, first of all, you had also a proposal by the Member of Parliament from Ngwen, that is Alex Kosgei, who came up with actually a proposal that the debt ceiling should actually be at 6 trillion shillings. It was actually a proposal that was put forward to the budget and allocation committee. Yes. You've never discussed this. We will not be in this situation if actually you teased out what was this, this particular draft legislation.
Because I'm in the budget committee. Let me help you. For the first time, it is only 2 weeks ago that we actually got informed exactly how much debt we have and how we were borrowing the money. Everything was always being hidden from us.
2 weeks ago?
Yes, it was only 2 weeks ago when, in fact, the new CS, Yatani, is an incredible man. For me, I don't even know why President Uhuru is not confirming him. The man came out and we sat with him in the budget committee. The parliamentary budget office had given us a brief, and we asked him, can you tell us how much money we owe? Finally, he came up with that list. Number two, Dibal, he told us for the first time that the reason why we needed to change the ceiling was, one, like Professor has said, to make sure that whatever money that we have already borrowed, which we were borrowing in the last 5 years from China, which has no conditionalities, at 14, 17% interest rates. And yet the IMF and World Bank was giving us loans at 2%. Why were we borrowing at 17%? So that the money can come. And Prof has been very diplomatic. The money was being borrowed at that rate for it to be stolen into these fake projects where you are being told we are doing a road, and it's only in Kenya where a tarmac road is paid for at 80 million shillings a kilometer. When in every other country in East and Central Africa, the total amount of money for that road is 40 million. That is what has been going on. So when you are blaming Parliament, it is us now who are learning. Then Jubilee has a majority in Parliament. In fact, this handshake has been the greatest thing for our country.
But why would
At least because of the handshake, we are now talking about honesty. Before that, Jubilee would tell us Namtadu. That's what they used to tell us.
But in this era where we have the Access of Information Act in play as well, why would you actually be getting this information just 2 weeks ago? Why weren't you pushing the envelope to actually be told what is the current state of play as far as the debt is concerned?
Being fair to my friend Onyonka, you see, Parliament's calendar is controlled by the ruling party.
Exactly.
Okay. So what?
And right now it's actually the executive.
Yeah. So what he's saying in the past, Parliament's calendar was controlled. You discuss what's in the order paper.
Yes, which they bring. We
Now,
can't change that.
If they don't bring. The only other thing is you can have a private member's motion to discuss this. All I'm saying is that, look, I can see why the government was proposing raising the debt ceiling because of where we have gotten to. Honorable Nyonka has been less diplomatic than I am.
Yeah, I said
and he has told
very
us
diplomatic.
exactly why you had gone there. I call it I call it before bad financial management.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point is that is what he's saying. Now that we are here, and the government through the handshake had decided that we must sanitize our system, but we must also go on with the infrastructure. What do we do? That's why I call it between the devil and deep bull sea. You cannot stop infrastructure, but in order to get infrastructure going, you must now borrow with some kind of sanitary thinking, some kind of cleanliness.
And right now, these mega projects which we are doing, all of them, 70% of them are stalled. Yeah. In fact, the reason why in the budget committee we even agreed to change the ceiling was because now the PDU, the Presidential Delivery Unit, has been given the responsibility. Before they pay, they must go and check and see what is on the ground.
Exactly.
That was never there. That was never there. The last point I wanted to make, Parliament is only going to be effective if, like Senator Mwaura has said, we are allowed to have the freedom to check the executive. If Parliament, one party has a majority, Jubilee has a majority of senators, has a majority of MCAs, has a majority of members of Parliament, has a majority of the women rep, what do you expect us to do from ODM and these other parties when we had the minority? They were actually messing up. I mean, how many times did Prime Minister Raila talk about the corruption which was going on? The country is going to tank. We have got too much debt. He was being told, now Tadu.
All right. Let's say from Honorable James Rika, briefly
That's
before.
a simple question. We'll start with a simple answer and go into the details. Is there a danger that Parliament may be abrogating its responsibility? That danger is there. Because we'll take the three issues that are, actually there are two. The debt ceiling and the interest capping. But there's even another, there are others that I've seen in Parliament. Now, the debt ceiling, the rationale behind it has actually been put forward. There's only one thing that they didn't bring, and that is, even after you put the ceiling, Parliament still has the capacity to stop the amount that actually being borrowed, and can question what are you borrowing it for. So 90 trillion is not that they just go and walk and go up to 90 trillion. Parliament still has 9 trillion. That you go up to 9 trillion. Parliament still has the capacity to stop them. Again, that calls, will Parliament have the ability to do that? Now, when you come to the interest ceiling, that's where I felt very uncomfortable. And because it's coming through this system that if the president comes with the memorandum, you need 2/3. And that is now where you start asking this presidential system and parliamentary system. It now comes into the House, and then the majority party now starts to see itself as part of the executive, while indeed it should be also part of checking the executive. And so if that happened like happened, I was in parliament, I don't know why people didn't turn up, I didn't receive any phone calls. So it now required 2/3 that is very difficult to mobilize. And if that continues to happen, if that continues to happen, then a lot of things that will pass. There's also another danger, and it's still being argued. To me, it has not been satisfactorily explained. Does the president only say his reservations, or does he actually craft an amendment? Because when an amendment is crafted, then it is almost an fait complete. Even the wording of it, now you can't change because you are going against the president. If it was left that you craft it, then now you put words that actually satisfy that, and that may be easier to do.
So in a sense, the president has an upper hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So you overrule what you've really come up with.
And I'll give you a third one, which I know you don't know about, that many people don't know. I was very unhappy when through miscellaneous amendments also brings that, because amendments come which even the executive ministers do not know where they came from. And you say, but how could it be here? And then...
But it is because you don't read the omnibus.
I'm coming to that.
You as legislators, you don't
but
actually...
I'm telling you, if we didn't read it, then I wouldn't be telling you what I'm telling you.
Maybe you're just an exceptional. You do read, others don't read.
But listen to what I was saying. When we said the regulation of non-pharmaceuticals, Parliament refused and said that is something that will go to the nurses. It went to the president. The president came back and said it should go to the pharmacists. I never understood. And it became impossible to raise the two-thirds. So the danger is there, and probably this is why if you go into a parliamentary system where the ministers are always there,
thank you,
to be then you can sort it out.
We're stuck for time. Then maybe we should just be winding up as well. Let's hear.
To answer you briefly. Any proposal by Alex Koske or somebody else about 6 trillion. That's already where we've reached that already. That's already beyond ceiling. We already reached that. The only reason we had to raise the ceiling is for breathing space, and also now. Remember that there was still a shortfall in the budget of about 670 billion. And that had to be raised. That's why there was a problem with the judiciary and with parliament and everybody. And once the ceiling is raised, you can see now everything has been normalized. The truth of the matter is that we should not misrepresent this thing about the ceiling, because we were in trouble.
We were in trouble.
I think let's just be honest to Kenyans. We've been pushed to a hard corner, and it is true we have raised the debt ceiling, but that is not a desirable outcome. And we must speak for posterity. The one-ton theft in government, they inflated government projects, the inconsistency of the National Treasury, the lack of a Loans and Grants Council, which is in law, that has not been implemented. The debt to GDP ratio was a creature of the executive. I've done a paper. It's supposed to be 28 to 35%. And Henry Rotich is on record has been said if we do up to 72%, we'll be on the brink. But now, look at it. If we are to borrow up to 9 trillion, which I expect that Treasury will borrow anyway, because our debts are about 3 trillion that we need to retire, Parliament, and you remember me for this, Parliament will not audit that process again. What we are showing the executive is that we are very malleable. We can be ordered at will, and there's nothing we can do. And people will soon be interested about being re-elected, and the same party leaders will be the ones wielding the hand of the certificate and opportunities to feed at the trough. If we continue this way, we are relegating our country to the periphery. You cannot have a 9.8 trillion GDP, and the borrowing capacity is 9 trillion.